Hey, thanks for stopping by for another episode of Appalachian Shine. This is JC, your regular host. And I want to thank those who are joining us on YouTube and those who may be watching us on ARC TV in addition to the podcast. I'm excited today to bring a guest on that I've looked forward to having this chat all week. Dr. Carolyn Bailey Lewis out of Athens, Ohio. Uh, Dr. Lewis is the author of Love and Loss, which discusses a lot of the issues with nursing homes. And she's come by wrote this book based on her story. It's an amazing story. Um, Dr. Lewis, I'm not tarry too long, but I do want to mention that in 2022, this was your book was featured on the Ohio Book Festival and won an Independent Press Award. And you've had a long history in the media and journalism. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Before we jump into the book, you've got a really just a touching story to tell. We were talking before we started recording about you're from Bluefield, West Virginia, and I'm just down the road in Richlands in Tazewell County, Virginia. And you tell us a little bit about growing up there in Bluefield and how you got all the way to Athens.
Wow, Bluefield was a great place back in yes, I was born in 1948, and I was born in Pittsburgh, actually, and my great aunt came to Pittsburgh to get me because my mother and my grandmother became ill, and she was just going to keep me for just a few months until they got well. And so I ended up living in Bluefield all of my life on Wayne Street. And a year before that, my great aunt, who could pass for white, she was a very light skinned woman, walked into the Flat Top National Bank and got a loan to build a building on the corner of Wayne and Logan Streets in Bluefield. And so as I grew up, I remember entertaining people like Ike and Tina, James Brown would come through, Etta James, all those acts that would come to the auditorium in Bluefield. And, they put the sign on the pole, Ike and Tina Turner Review coming to Bluefield. And when James Brown Review came, they had a line on there saying it was a family show, so I got to go. And he invited people to come up on stage and dance. And guess who went up there and danced with James Brown?
Oh,
I
you did
did.
not.
And a bunch of people, yes, we did.
Oh, that's incredible.
But
That's
and
incredible. And
interestingly enough, the building is still there. It's in very bad condition. However, there are plans, hopefully, to see some restoration and historical preserving of that building in the near future, hopefully.
yeah, and you're talking about the Hotel Thelma.
Hotel Thelma on the corner of Wayne and Logan Streets in Bluefield.
And you mentioned Etta James. A while back, I was on another podcast and we were talking about there was I guess Rolling Stone had done the greatest singers of all time, greatest artists of all time, and I was surprised at where they didn't have Etta James where I thought they should have been ranked. And I was looking at that list, I'm like, wow, we've got to restack this. So I ended up doing a show talking about why Etta James should be in the top 10 of just the most amazing artists and voices ever. Yeah,
Little Richard
that's one
stayed
of the
there
world
too,
you
and
got this.
Little Richard stayed there too, and my aunt Edith did his hair. She said he was very fussy about it, of course.
Yeah, I know there's a long history with probably Hotel Thelma, and I would invite anybody that's listening to this could be a completely different show we could do sometime, obviously, and maybe we'll revisit that in the future because there's a local pastor in Bluefield that's working on the restoration, and you've been invited to be a part of that as well. And um, it's go look up Hotel Thelma, read about the history of it, and it's really I wish that had been impressed on a lot of us growing up in school. That it took me. I was telling you, I was almost embarrassed. I didn't hear about it, learn about it until much later in life. And but it's part of local history and local lore, and it's amazing how small world you grown up in Bluefield, and here we are, and now you're in Athens. Tell us a little bit about your book, Love and Loss, and how you came about this from the nursing homes.
In 1995, I was living in Morgantown, working there, and I started having terrible back pain and arm pain. But you know how we are. We think we're working too hard or nothing's wrong and it will pass. But however, it didn't. And my late husband had me back and forth to the hospital getting shots for the pain. I was going from bed to floor thinking it was the mattress. But when they finally did an MRI, I had a tumor in my spinal cord and it completely paralyzed me. I got up one morning, just hit the floor. September 19, 1995 was on my birthday that day. So got me to the hospital. They did an MRI in a day or so at Ruby Memorial and saw this tumor. Thank God it was not malignant. So they told my husband if I made it through 18 hours of surgery alive, that I would be a vegetable for the rest of my life, to just be prepared to take care of me. So we're people of faith, and he had people praying everywhere. And after 11 hours of surgery, I was strapped from my neck down to my toes. When you have anything wrong with your spinal cord, your legs, your feet, all of that start to turn in.
Yeah.
And so I was in Health South in Morgantown. They sent me down there and they wanted to know, the doctors and nurses at Ruby wanted to know, had I been around diseased pets? Had I been overseas? What had I been eating? They had not seen this before. And what I did know, I had the best surgeon east of the Mississippi, they told me, Dr. Howard Kaufman. So they sent me down to Health South and didn't expect me to live, less more walk again. After 2 months and 2 days, I walked out on a walker. The difference was the therapeutic pool. When I got into that pool, it seemed like I could just fly. And so I walked out of there, and after 6 months, went back to work, driving and everything. But over the course of time, after about 5 or 6 years or so, I'd have a setback. Didn't know what it was until 2015, when I ended up 1 month in the hospital in Columbus, Ohio. And the neurologist there diagnosed me with NMO, neuromyelitis optica. It's an autoimmune disease. So now I take shots for this disease, hopefully to ward off any future setbacks. But over the course of these 26 years or so, I've been in 6 nursing homes and 7 hospitals. And I was life flighted a couple of times, and I'm getting to why I wrote the book. Came back from one of those life flights. My blood pressure dropped to 40 over 10. You hear me? 40 over 10. And one time, 50 over 20. So I came back to the room. I was in the facility in Athens, Ohio, in the Laurels. I looked at the ceiling and I said, Lord, what? I'd gone through so much sepsis, bleeding on the brain, intensive care, the blood pressure drops, the life flights. I heard clearly, you're a journalist, write the book. You're an insider, you're a lucid insider. Write the book. What book? Tell the story of what it's like to be an insider in a nursing home. There are a lot of people who are here who are in different homes, but they can't tell the story. I've had people tell me, oh, I know what it's like. My brother was in there for ages, but you don't know until you're in the bed, in the room, in the facility. So I tell the story, the good, the bad, and the ugly, what to look for, my recommendations, my observations, and the stories of other people as well.
Yeah, that's what is it like? I mean, there's some nursing homes. I was reading in one of the articles that you were interviewed in that some are really good and the food is terrible, and sometimes the food is good and the service is horrible. Um, people you were talking about how people need to have an advocate to make sure that people in nursing homes are well taken care of, and not just when family visits, but around the clock. Um, how did you experience that, and how did you get around that?
It's run the gamut. I've been in a few nursing homes where you walk in and you get this terrible sense of dread because you see that it's dirty and it's smelly, and you see that they don't have as much help as they need. And then you go to some and they're very, very clean and they're attentive, but all over the country, there's shortages and there are warts in every place. I mean, every place has its issues. I don't think there's a perfect hospital, the perfect nursing home, anything. You just have to do the best you can with what you have. And with that advocate, you really need a friend, a family member, someone who can just show up and make sure you're being properly cared for. It's, sometimes I've had my light on for an hour, and because of shortages, they might be having an emergency somewhere else with someone else. And you just wait and wait and wait. Hopefully, you're not in distress or choking, and that's the issue. But as I said, it runs the gamut. You'll find some that are very, very well cared for, and there are lots of activities, and there are lots of outings. The food is good, the place is clean. You'll find somewhere you're in a room with 2 or 3 people separated by a curtain and no bathroom in the room. And it really makes for a difficult stay.
Now you actually had to be back in a nursing home. I read this was during COVID.
Yeah,
What families could even visit? What was that like for you?
horrible, absolutely horrible. You could only see your family outside of the window. And my son was here visiting for 2 months, outside of the window for 2 months. And one day, when it kind of let up a little bit, they had kind of a drive-by where your family, you could go outside and your family could drive by. It was so emotional. Everyone was just boohooing. They were driving by, but we couldn't touch them. So, and the other part of that is because it would start and stop and start and stop. They said, okay, we've got COVID in the building. We're on the 14-day quarantine, stay in your room. That you get to that 13th day, someone else would get COVID, and you go another 14 days. So we were sort of in for almost a good 2 months without getting out of your room. So I asked someone one day, how do you know when you have, because I'd taken my shots, I had the test one day, and then I asked someone, how do you know if you have COVID? Well, they said, when the white suits come for you. 2 days later, the white suits came for me and took me out of here to another section where they were quarantining everyone. And you stayed there for 14 days, and you got the infusion and you got the medication to kind of help you out. But it was very isolating. I never saw so many people go downhill and even pass away, not just from COVID, but because they couldn't see their loved ones. They thought they'd been abandoned.
That's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And you detail that in your book.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, do you mind if I ask what your daughter's first name is?
My daughter's name is Karen, Caryn Bailey.
Well, Karen, after reading about how much of a firebrand you were looking out for your mother, everyone should have a Karen in their
Yes.
family.
Yes.
You were doing obviously doing the Lord's work, and to be that much of an advocate, popping in, I read at 3 a.m.
Yes. She
to
would.
check on you.
In fact, last night as we're talking now, I'm still in nursing care. I'm in rehab care. I'm in my
Okay.
room right now
Okay.
because I got some wounds somewhere else. I'm still dealing with some issues. I had a little setback in November, so I'm trying to get through that. It's a process, it's a journey, but I'm getting there. I'm on my way out of here to get home. But yes, my dear daughter will pop in anytime just to see how her mama is. And she will say, I care about my mom. I care about other people too, but my mama, especially because I only have one. That's what she always says.
Yeah. I mean, everybody needs an advocate like that because you're not always getting that round the clock care, and a lot of times, and I had an uncle that was in a nursing home. Um, right before he died. And when I went there, I was really, I didn't like it at all. And it was so overcrowded and understaffed, and people just can't keep an eye on you and give you the kind of care that you need. It's almost like they'll get around to you when they can get around to you. And
Yes.
and I know that's frustrating for a lot of the workers because I know a couple of people who've worked in that field. Um, but it's got to be frightening, especially during those periods of COVID. And I'm sure your daughter was calling you a lot. So,
Yes, calling and
um,
FaceTiming,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
In fact, one time when the holiday came, we did sort of a cooking with Carolyn because we can cook in the kitchen next door, and she was cooking at home, and we were FaceTiming even though we couldn't get together. So we made it work.
Now, Love and Loss, the storied nature of nursing home care, that's available, I see, on Amazon and Kindle and audiobook and in paperback. Is there anywhere else if someone wanted to get one directly from you, an autographed copy, how would they go about that?
They could just contact me actually, and I could autograph the book for them and mail it to them. Would you like for me to give my email
Yeah,
address or?
if you're comfortable
Okay,
doing that, you're
sure.
welcome
I
to.
am. It's Lewis, Lewisc, as in Carolyn, and the number three at ohio.edu. Lewis C3 at ohio.edu. And I'd be glad to autograph a book. And with shipping and handling, the book is 1609. With shipping and handling is $20 total. And I will ship it to them and they get in a few days.
Now, I would not be doing my due diligence if I did not say that your book was actually published through Monday Creek Publishing, which is also an Appalachian publisher. And we know Gina McKnight through the Appalachian Authors Guild, which I'm involved with as well. And they do a lot of great work, and they could probably contact through them as well, Monday Creek Publishing, if they wanted to touch base with you as well. So make sure you check all that out. And now you were a journalist, and you had a really, I was reading a little bit about your bio and your career. It's an impressive story you've went through, an impressive book, and a story to tell. But your professional career has been just as impressive. Now, are you still? I was looking at from ohio.edu, your bio there. Are you still part of the Presidential Advisory Council on Disability and Accessibility Planning?
They don't have that anymore. There are a lot of real small groups that are working, but I'm on the Athens City Commission on Disabilities, and the advisory group is no longer functioning as such. We have an interim president, so we'll see what happens when a new one comes in. Maybe he or she will get it back going again.
Okay, you had to. I mean, I'm just scrolling at the list of current associations and things, past public media associations you were with, and you broke a little bit of a glass ceiling, I guess. Um, when did you first run a television station?
In 1993, I was named interim at WNPB in Morgantown. And the very night I was named general manager after a national search, guess who was sitting beside me was Mr. Rogers. We were having a dinner, and Fred Rogers was right beside me. And he was actually a good friend of mine because he just lived in Pittsburgh, where Family Communications
Yeah.
is, just down the road up the road from Morgantown. So we'd invited him to be the speaker for our meeting, for our banquet. And the executive director of West Virginia Public Broadcasting stood up and said, "Before Mr. Rogers comes, I have an announcement." And they named me as the general manager of the station after a search. Didn't know it at the time, but I was the first Black woman named general manager of a public TV station in the country. So when I opened a lot of doors, in fact, the first Black woman to graduate from the WVU School of Journalism. So I had a 38-year career in public broadcasting, and 25 in Morgantown and 13 in Athens. And I retired in 2016. However, retirement is not retirement. I still teach an online class. I taught for OU for a bit. I'm involved in so many things. And I was just named about 2 weeks ago. I'll be going to Morgantown on May the 5th to the Academy of Distinguished Alumni. It's quite an honor. Jerry West is in it, Hot Rod Hunley,
Okay.
Katherine Johnson of the mathematician,
Yeah.
Patrice Harris. You know the name Patrice Harris, Dr. Harris. She's
Uh,
from Bluefield, the first Black woman president of the American Medical
okay.
Association. Patrice was born in my hotel, and I was her first babysitter.
No,
And so
what? Wow.
Patrice wrote the review on the back of my book.
Oh, if Wallace could talk in
Yes,
that hotel, wow.
yes, absolutely. So yes, I've got a long and storied history of public broadcasting and meeting so many people at public conferences, including Fred Rogers, Mr. Feely, Bill Moyers, Gwen Eiffel, all of those people. I've been to Sesame Street, got pictures with Big Bird. So it's been really, really good.
What is that going to be another book about your life? Is there another one?
My book I'm writing now is about the Hotel Thelma. I've got about 4 chapters written.
Oh,
And so
okay.
I'm writing about that in our Green Book story. In 1960, my parents wanted me back. They got back together and they lived in El Paso, Texas. So she drove me all the way to see if I wanted to stay with them. After a week, I said, "No, I want to stay with you, Mama Thelma." And to celebrate, this woman drove me all the way to Anaheim, California in 1960. We were at Disneyland. And
Wow.
so then she drove all the way back to Southern Route with her Green Book, by the way. And Hotel Thelma is in the Green Book,
Mm-hmm.
and Travelers Hotel as well, which she bought next door. But yes, it's been a journey. So that's my next book. We have to talk
Wow.
about that one too.
Yeah, I would love for you to keep us posted on what's going on with the Hotel Thelma, and
Okay.
maybe the pastor would like to come on next time too. And I'd
Mm-hmm.
love to hear some of your stories traveling and having to use the Green Book, because
Yes,
so many people just still don't know about that era of how hard it was to travel.
it
And
was.
I only know it just because things I've seen on TV, and it doesn't even do it
Mm-hmm.
justice, I imagine. So I certainly appreciate your time. Like I said, I was looking forward to our chat, and hopefully, yeah, drop me an email and keep me posted, and we'll do this again, and perhaps I could meet over in Bluefield and just meet you and the
Nice.
pastor and do a recording over there.
Well, that would be nice. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I appreciate it.
Well, I thank you, Miss.
And then my book is on Amazon, or they can contact me, Lewis T3 at ohio.edu, and I will sign a copy and get it to you. It's $20.
Well, Dr. Lewis, I'll have my $20 in hand if I see you in Bluefield. So
Okay.
I thank you so very much. Thanks for coming on to our show today. And for those watching, thanks again. Feel free and share this episode if you see it on YouTube, or let friends know about it if you're listening to us on the podcast. We're available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Amazon, wherever you find your favorite podcasts. You're going to hear me and Dr. Lewis having a chat. So thanks again, everybody, and we'll see you on down the road.